One of the things that I've had to learn is that the enemy will do any and everything he can to stop you from getting to where God has promised you and where God has promised you're going to go. So people ask, why would the enemy, care about what it is that you're doing? Well, why wouldn't he? Anything that opposes the enemy, he's going to be opposed of and try to stop. It's anti the Most High God. It's anti Yahshua. It's anti anything that is going to stop the enemy from ruling and reigning, because we know that he's very prideful. We know that the enemy is just want everything to be about him. Everything has to be, people got to praise and worship him, and anything that opposes his praise and worship, he's going to try to interfere with it and stop it. Because I have to take a look at my life. When I look at my life, I have been promised things about the Most High God, and it makes me sit back and think like, Lord, is this still what you want me to do? Did you still, am I still called to do this? Because it's taking time for me to get there. But the Lord had to remind me, is that King David was given a promise early on in his life, and he didn't actually get the crown until about 20 plus years after the Lord initially gave him that promise. And in between the time he was given that promise and in between the time that he actually got to operate in that call, in that anointing, I can only imagine what it was that he was thinking. Heck, he was even king of Judah for 7 years. So by him being king of Judah for 7 years, but God told him that he would be king of Israel, that would make anybody think like, well, maybe because it's taking so long that I'm not supposed to be doing what God told me that I would be doing. But that isn't the case. See, David needed to be prepared for such a call, to have such an empire. He needed to be prepared from the time that he was initially told what it was that he was going to be doing until he actually got officially crowned. He had to go through so much preparation. He had to do so much. There was so much coming against him. He had his mentor trying to take him out, for God's sakes. So there was a lot of, things that he was dealing with. Not to mention the emotional turmoil that he was dealing with as well. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. The book of Psalms talks about how he was crying out to God and he's hiding in mountains and things of that nature. So I'm saying this because I want people to be encouraged that if God gave you a promise, the Most High is faithful to see it through, as long as you still choose to use your free will and allow the Spirit of the Most High God to use you. It ain't going to come easy. Not all the time anyway, especially when it's something sort of empire building, legacy building. It's definitely not going to come simply, because the enemy is going to do any and everything he can to throw you off, to make you think that you crazy, have people turning against you, delays after delays after delays, dealing with this. For me personally, I dealt with homelessness, evictions, divorce, repossessions, losing jobs, couldn't keep lights on, so much adversity that I had to deal with and go through. I'm thinking to myself, like, how can God have called me to such a high calling and I'm dealing with all of this? That's because dogs don't bark at parked cars and thieves don't break into empty houses. Being a single mother and having to have gone through all of that stuff, the enemy wanted me to be taken out. He wanted me to feel like I'm alone, that I would never get through it, that I would never be able to prosper against the weapons that were being formed against me. But the Most High shows up and shows out when we're needed. The Most High to show up and show out, to allow us to keep going. Because when you have such a huge calling, a huge legacy, a huge empire that you are building, be prepared for adversary. Be prepared for so-called delays, because when Satan means for our harm, the Most High will always turn for our greatest and highest good. Learn everything it is that you need to learn through the adversary, through the adversity, so that you can get to that promise, because God is not a liar. The book of Isaiah says that it's impossible for the Most High God to lie. So if the Lord gave you a promise, trust and believe it will be fulfilled if you choose to keep going.